Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be going over UFC 304 Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad 2. Going to be going through all the predictions and breaking down every single fight on the card, and also predicting the best moments on the card. Now honestly, UFC 304 looks pretty stacked. I think it's one of the best cards we've had this year. Does suck for the UK fans, but I think ultimately it's going to be a good card regardless, and I think especially the more we move up this card, it's definitely going to show out. So let's kick it off with the first fight on the card. Shauna Bannon versus Ardelean. So I think with this fight, it's either going to be very good in terms of it being scrappy, or it's going to be very shit as to whether pretty much nothing is going to be happening. So I am happy that this is the first fight on the card. There's been a lot of internal switching around on this card. Not really external in terms of replacing fighters like UFC 303. But there's still been a fair bit of internal change, which we will definitely get into further up the card. And when we look at this matchup specifically, Shauna Bannon, I mean, she's got good aggression, but when she fought Bruna Brazil, who's going to be fighting Molly McCann further up this card, her striking defense is so piss poor. She leaves herself open for hooks, pretty much any strike, especially the hooks against Bruna Brazil, that lead left. She just leaves herself so open when she comes forward and tries to get into an exchange. Now, she does have a decent chin. Obviously, she hasn't been knocked out or anything. She got hit with some pretty good shots in that fight. But I will say she does have the physical advantages in this fight. So, I mean, she might have the luxury of actually being able to keep the distance here. She's got a 4-inch reach advantage, and she's got a 2-inch height advantage as well. So she's just naturally the bigger of the two of them. And I will say that she does have good front leg side kicks as well. Or she can manage the distance, but she's not really that kind of fighter from the fights that I've seen. She is more of a brawler. And with that, I'm going to be going against the grain pretty much straight off the bat when it comes to this fight. And I'm going to be taking Ardelean. Because aside from the physical advantages that Shauna Bannon has, Ardelean is more well-rounded. She's got the aggression as well as Bannon, but she has a better clinch game. She strikes better in the clinch. She has a very good output as well, and most of all, when it comes to the ground game, her ground and pound is very, very good, which she showed against Munameni on the regional scene. If you haven't seen that fight, it's actually up there as one of the top women's MMA fights, just in terms of, well, not fights, really, realistically the round that they fought. Very high pace, a lot of blood everywhere. Like it was actually pretty entertaining, and she was doing very well in that fight. She's very well rounded in the sense that she's got good judo throws, she's got good trips, like honestly most of the strawweights, but she does have good trips. She's good on the ground with the ground and pound, and when it comes to her striking output, she's actually got very decent straight strikes. But aside from that, she doesn't really mix things up that well. That's why I'm a bit off it when it comes to technical ability between the two of them. And the momentum. She hasn't lost since 2016 against Zhang Wei Li. So that is definitely a tell there. I mean, the last time she lost was 8 years ago against the now champion of the UFC, and she's gone and won 4 out of 5 fights by finish as well. So I will say that Shauna Bannon, she does have the grit, she's got the chin, as I said, but I think Ardelean just has a more well-rounded game, and I think that she's going to get this done by a unanimous decision win here, and I think that's mainly going to be through the clinch and the groundwork. Moving on, Parkin versus Lukasz Brzeski. Look, I will say when it comes to Brzeski, he's got some decent UFC experience under his belt. I mean, he's fought Carl Williams, who's looking very good in that heavyweight division, and Waldo Cortez Acosta, who is also looking very good. Both of them have a lot of momentum behind them. And I will say that Brzeski, when he does fight on the feet, he's one of the more athletic heavyweights. So he's fairly composed. He's pretty quick as well. And I would say his best tools are his leg kicks and his overhands as well. But that being said, I am very confident in taking Mick Parkin in this fight. I'm very high on this guy in the heavyweight division. I talk a whole lot about him in my video of the most underrated fighters in each division, which I definitely recommend that you check that one out. I'll leave it in the description below. And I will say that this will probably be Mick's most technical test so far, but I just think that he's going to show that there are levels to this game. I mean, he has very crisp boxing combination. He has the undefeated momentum. He's Tom Aspinall's main training partner, so he's very accustomed to like big heavyweights with very good speed, which Brzeski, as I said, he's athletic. He's one of the quicker heavyweights, but I mean, obviously it's a fight, it's different, but comparing Parkin to training with Tom Aspinall all the time and then fighting Brzeski, it's just not the same. So I will say that Parkin will have something on his hands in terms of Brzeski being that natural, athletic fighter that he is. But Parkin has by far, he has the better stamina out of the two of them. Brzeski he really fades when it comes to the second, especially to the third round. He's athletic, he can move very well, but that's only for a short amount of time. And unless he gets that, like that heavyweight luck of getting a, perfect shot through and laying Parkin out, which I don't think is going to happen, I think Parkin is just going to walk out of this with a 30-27 unanimous decision win here, and he will be moving straight into the into that top 15 opportunity position right after this fight, as he should be. Moving up, Sam Patterson versus Kiefer Crosbie. Now, I am not really liking this anywhere that this fight goes for Kiefer Crosbie, man, honestly. Patterson definitely should be the favorite in this fight, and I'm very high on him in this matchup. Patterson just has such a good build for welterweight at that 170 pounds. He's got a 78-inch reach, which is very impressive for that division. Not many fighters, if any fighters, have even realistically close to that inch, like that reach advantage. So, I mean, he's going to have that advantage over pretty much everyone that he fights, and especially in this matchup, he has an 8-inch reach advantage over Crosbie, which is just going to be such a nuisance for Crosbie to try and get that boxing going. And on top of that, Patterson has a very clean submission game. He's 6-0 with submissions. He's got the crisp boxing as well, which he manages very well with the reach. The only hole I really see in Sam Patterson's game, which is an issue with a lot of taller fighters like he is at 6'3", is that he keeps his chin exposed like straight up in the air and straight on the center line when he goes for exchanges, which he has been punished for in the past, which would honestly be and definitely be an issue higher up in the division against most of those fighters. If he doesn't fix that, he will be getting chinned. But against Kiefer Crosbie, I just don't see Crosbie being able to capitalize on that and really getting into that range. He doesn't have the greatest clinch game in the world. He's more so a decent, just natural boxer. But against a guy that has this much reach against him and has a better submission game, just grappling game overall, it's a very uphill battle for Kiefer Crosbie. I mean, the only way is like if Sam Patterson, has some lapse in judgment and then he gets caught in range, then that's a possibility. But Kiefer Crosbie, he has power, but I don't think he has that power there to really take Patterson out. Honestly, I see this pretty much going the exact same way as Crosby's first fight in the UFC when he went against Kevin Jousset at UFC 293. I think that's just going to go the exact same way, in that I think that Patterson will find a very good shot on the feet and then he'll drop Crosbie, switch to the back, and then cinch in that rear naked choke finish in the second round. That's what I'm calling. And if Sam Patterson can tidy up that strike defense that he has, get his head off the center line, and then utilize like a heavy wrestling base seamlessly, like with his striking, and obviously that jiu-jitsu game that he does have, that's the best part of his game. If he fixes all that up and tidies that up and combines that well, I think he is honestly going to be a pretty big problem in the welterweight division, only being 28 years old. Moving up, Muhammad Mokaev versus Manel Kape. Okay. All right. This is extremely interesting. I mean, I'm not sure if these matchups have been like fully finalized in order yet, but I find this absolutely insane that this has moved from the main card to the prelims, and now the prelims down to the early prelims. Honestly, this must have something to do with Manel Kape. I mean, he's either they've either predicted that he's just going to bloody miss weight again, or he's just done something to piss someone off, or it just could be because that alleged fight broke out at the UFC PI, which Gene Silver was just, you know, stewing. He was just stirring the pot. Love that guy. But honestly, I don't know what the reason is behind Mokaev and Kape being so low on this card. It's honestly insane. And it makes absolutely no sense from a business perspective either from the UFC. I mean, if anything, you are putting them higher up on the card, because if the fight they had in the PI was true, that all that's going to do is increase marketability for the overall card. So I think it's got to be something internal that just hasn't come out in the MMA articles yet. Like, being on the prelims, I could understand it being there, but being on the early prelims is an absolute joke. Like, that's like when they put Romanov and Jailton Almeida from the main card onto the prelims. I'm like, okay, that's okay, but I could not imagine them being on the early prelims of the fight. I think that's just absolutely insane. And you can't just say it's because they're flyweights, you know, or that's just not fair, because the last like 6 flyweight title fights we've gotten have been all absolute bangers. So honestly, that division has been holding up pretty well in recent times. I mean, especially since DJ left. I can't give a concrete answer for this, but regardless, I mean, being so low on the card, it may have people tuning in earlier. That's really like the only thing I can really think of when it comes down to the decision as to why they put this so low. But aside from, you know, obviously the positioning and everything like that, like, I mean, let's look at this match. I mean, it's a very, very big clash of styles. We've got Mokaev with the chain wrestling, and then we've got Manel Kape, who's got the clean boxing on the feet and that speed. And this fight really comes down to Manel keeping this on the feet and maintaining the distance to find very clean shots, which is going to be tricky because Mokaev has the bigger build. He's taller, he's got the longer reach as well. And realistically, along with El Bazi, I think that this is Manel Kape's like worst stylistic matchup in the division, along with like Alexandre Pantoja as well, which we saw what happened in the Manel Kape fight when Manel came into the UFC on his debut and fought Pantoja, which is, you know, it was his debut, straight into challenging Pantoja, who was literally 5th ranked at the time, so it's definitely a challenge for him. But the issue in that fight, which can translate to this fight, is that he was very tentative with his striking, letting his hands go, because he was so worried about the takedown threat from Pantoja, which Pantoja took advantage of that and didn't actually take him down, and then outlanded him on the feet. And I could see it being very, very similar in this fight. I don't think Mokaev has the arsenal on the feet to actually, you know, do that to Manel Kape as well as Pantoja did, but there is a very huge chance that Mokaev could run away with this on the ground. I think there very much is a very good chance. Mokaev is very, very good with his chain wrestling. You cannot deny that, and at 23 years old, that is absolutely insane. I do talk about him in my Hype Trains video. I rank him very highly, which you can check out in the description below. I will leave it there. It's definitely a good video to check out. But when we look at when Mokaev shoots, Manel Kape just has to be on with that takedown defense. I mean, he does have the hand speed and the reflexes there, but I feel like Manel Kape finding that flush shot on Mokaev is just such a stretch when it comes to that wrestling, especially with the way Mokaev shoots. I don't like the way he shoots in normally, because he doesn't like shoot in, he drops and then shoots. He does like an L, so he drops straight down, which looks bad from the judges, for the judges perspective, because it looks like he's getting dropped. If you watch the Alex Perez fight, it just looks like borderline looks like he's just getting dropped when he goes to shoot. But when it comes to this, if he can drop straight down and completely avoid those shots from Kape and get in very low and snatch up a leg, then that's where I think this can be a very big advantage for him. And I think, honestly, when it comes to that wrestling and just like that transitions that he has with those longer limbs, I think that this is just a very, very good like physical advantage based fight for Muhammad Mokaev, and I'm honestly going to be taking him as the favorable outcome here. Manel, he hasn't been finished in 7 to 8 years, and I don't see Muhammad Mokaev being the one to do it. And that's not me saying that, oh, he just can't submit him, there's no chance. I think that's more so from Mokaev's game plan in this, because Manel Kape, he does have power, he's got the speed, he's 11-0 with KOs. I mean, pretty obvious there. But when it comes to Mokaev and his chain wrestling, I think that he is going to make sure that he does not risk the submission over the position in this fight, especially. So I am going to take him by a 29-28 decision here, and I think that he will take the first 2 rounds, and then I think Kape will then come back and find a lot more success once he just sees that Mokaev is really trying to drown out that clock. And I think Manel Kape is one of those guys that would really honestly show that urgency in his game, but I think it will be too little too late, and I got Mokaev taking this one by decision. Moving up, Oban Elliott versus Preston Parsons. Now, Oban Elliott has looked pretty decent in his first 2 UFC fights, but I will say I feel like Preston Parsons is basically just Oban Elliott, but just a bit more well-versed in pretty much every position. I mean, he's strong, he's got good takedowns, and he's more advanced with his submissions overall. I mean, you can see that in just their statistics on the screen. And in their last fights, Parsons beating Semmelsberger is more impressive than Elliott beating Val Woodburn. That's just an absolute no-brainer. I mean, that KO threat from Semmelsberger and Preston Parsons just destroyed him with the wrestling, and I think that's going to be a big key in this fight. But I will say that if it does stay on the feet and if anyone's getting finished, I would probably edge it to Elliott. I mean, both of them aren't super impressive on the feet, but just honestly, I think the takedowns and the strength in the wrestling from Parsons is just going to be the key to getting a decision win in this one. Now, moving from the early prelims into the prelims, Modestas Bakauskas versus Marcin Prachnio. So this matchup is a bit weird. It's a bit of a weird one that they've made. It's kind of just like sticks out like a sore thumb. It just doesn't really look like it's supposed to be here. But I will say that this fight, I can definitely see this one being more so entertaining. I mean, both of these guys have been pretty inconsistent throughout their careers, and even though they have different striking styles, Bakauskas more of like a straight kickboxer, whereas Prachnio is more of a karate style based fighter. They are pretty evenly matched when it even comes to them statistically, but they're just evenly matched overall. They're very much at that same level, and just in terms of their skill sets overall, I mean, they don't have much of a submission game. They both have, you know, KO power on the feet, and they both have pretty much the same decisions as well. So it's definitely a close fight. But when we look at Bakauskas, he's got the speed advantage here. He's got the speed advantage, and he's got very good lunging straight strikes as well, which he's shown in a lot of his past fights. He showed that very well against Tyson Pedro when he fought him. And I will say Prachnio, like, he's good at adapting in his fights and cutting down the offense of his opponents, especially with his leg kicks. That's without a doubt his best weapon. But I'm going to go with Bakauskas getting his reads in the second round. I think he's just a bit more of a cleaner striker overall, and I think he's someone that is just more direct in finding that KO. So I think he'll find it in round 2. I think he'll get that 1-2 straight down the pipe, and I think he'll get that TKO finish on the ground. Now moving on, Caolàn Loughran, the Don, versus Jake Hadley. I can definitely see this one being a sleeper fight. To be honest, I think that this will be a very, very interesting fight. I mean, both of them are very durable. I mean, we've got Jake Hadley coming up from flyweight and having his first ever fight in his career at bantamweight. And with both of these guys never getting finished, I mean, Hadley's just very game and Caolàn Loughran's just got an absolute fucking brick head. So there's just obviously no surprise there that he's so durable. But I will say, Loughran as well as Jake Hadley, both of these guys are so bloody game. They're very aggressive, well, especially Loughran. Loughran is very aggressive in his style, and he has, I mean, they've both got the durability, but he has the KO power there as well. And with Hadley coming in on short notice, I think that this is a pretty tough matchup to take on short notice being a divisional debut as well, I think it is pretty tricky, and it's going to be interesting to see how Hadley's chin does go against Loughran's power. But obviously Hadley's going to be more hydrated, so his chin could be, you know, more so well formed when he's moved up to bantamweight. But I do see Don getting the better of the boxing exchanges in this one. I think Caolàn, I think he's going to edge it there. Realistically, he's very game. He's had some tough fights. He fought Taylor Lapulus, and Taylor Lapulus, it does have very good kickboxing. And I think, you know, having that experience there and fighting someone like that, I think and him being in his natural weight division as well, I think that he is going to be able to manage that octagon control very well and really get into Jake Hadley's face. And I think Hadley is going to struggle to secure the takedowns against a guy like Caolàn Loughran, because Caolàn Loughran is so short. He's got a very good center of gravity. He's got a very, you know, low base. And he's a brick. He's just very, very tough to take down. He's a ball of muscle. And I will say, with both of these guys being so durable, I think that's just what's going to make the fight so entertaining as well. I think it's going to make it a very entertaining scrap, but I think Loughran is going to be able to get the better of this one. So I've got the Don winning by a decision win here, and I think he'll win the first and third rounds. I think Hadley will push the pace in the second round and edge it, but then I think Loughran will really take over in that third and get that real, you know, work in the clinch, get that control down, really bully Hadley against the cage and take this one by a very competitive decision win. Moving up, Molly McCann versus Bruna Brazil. Now, I'm not really seeing the accuracy in these odds that have been made. I think that this is a fairly even matchup. Yes, you got Molly McCann, who's fighting in the UK. She's fighting in Manchester. It shouldn't emphasize it, to be honest. I think, honestly, Molly McCann has had some pretty shit performances recently. I honestly think that Molly McCann, just being in the UK, obviously that is blowing those odds out of proportion, but also, I mean, she's had 2 decent KO wins with the spinning elbow. She, you know, knocked out Goldie. She locked out Luana Carolina as well. But Bruna Brazil, I think she has the better striking, especially with the teep kicks and the head kicks. She's got better range. She's, you know, 3.5-inch reach advantage there, and she times her takedowns very well. And from what we've seen of Molly McCann on the ground, she's a complete liability there, which I can see Bruna Brazil taking complete advantage of. Honestly, I'm going to call it now. I think McCann is going to get the decision win. That shouldn't have been in her favor in the first place. I think it's going to be very much like a Paddy versus Gordon situation. I don't think I'm going to be surprised if that happens, to be honest. I don't think anyone will be. Obviously, doing these predictions, going off this when it comes to skill set, I think Bruna Brazil is going to sub her. I think she is going to submit Molly McCann. I think she looked very good against Bannon, and she's only lost to decent competition. I mean, she's lost to Loughran Me, who's on a 3-fight win streak, who's going to hit the top 15 soon, and she lost to Denise Gomes, who's got some of the best KO power in that division, which I also talk about her in my top underrated fighters in every division. So definitely check that video out for more information on these kind of fighters. And honestly, I think Bruna Brazil is just going to do a fantastic job of timing those takedowns, and I think she'll do it when Molly McCann overextends with the striking, when she thinks she's got Bruna Brazil hurt, and I think Bruna Brazil will get it to the ground and then she'll just whip out a submission. I think she'll get it late. I think Molly McCann will really start pushing the pace, and I think she'll start thinking that she's running away with it, you know, obviously because of those judges. And then I think she'll get aggressive. She'll overextend towards the back of the cage. Bruna Brazil will level change, shoot off, double leg her, take her down, find her back, probably rear naked choke her, something like that. Honestly, but that is my hard prediction. I'm saying that Bruna Brazil will get the submission here, but honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if it's going to be the Paddy Pimblett against Jared Gordon treatment in this one. Moving on to the feature prelim, Nathaniel Wood versus Daniel Pineda. I am going to be taking Nathaniel Wood in this one. He's in his prime age range, and I will say, like, you know, you got Pineda. He's finished every single one of his fights. He's finished 28 fights. I mean, that's insane. He's never won by a decision, but That being said, I mean, he could KO Nathaniel Wood, and there's absolutely no doubt about that, but he's 38 years old now, and it's more so clear in his recent performances that he is on that decline. And I will say that if these guys are in the exchange, then Pineda, you know, he could land the KO without a doubt. I mean, he has the clear advantage when it comes to raw power, but stylistically, he's just not a good matchup for him overall. I mean, Wood's got a very high work rate. He works the body very well. He's extremely technical on the feet. He does have a pretty low strike absorption rate as well, and he's just had the success against better competition overall. I mean, he beat Andre Feely, he beat Charles Jourdain as well. So ultimately, I think he is going to be taking that unanimous decision in this one. I will be surprised if he finishes Daniel Pineda, to be honest. I think Wood will definitely be playing this one safe. I mean, Pineda being 28 for 28 when it comes to finishes, Nathaniel Wood is not going to overextend himself, and he has that technical capability to make sure he's safe. So I'm going to be comfortably taking him by a unanimous decision win in this one. All right, now moving on to our super stacked main card, Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. I am very keen for this fight, and even though I do think Arnold Allen will honestly be able to take this fight, I do think that honestly, I think Giga Chikadze is underrated, especially by people after that Kelvin Kattar fight. I mean, Giga, he has very tight kickboxing and a liver kick from hell, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's been working that grappling as well. I mean, there's in the embedded series, and I've seen on their Instagram as well, like Beneil Dariush has been drilling with Giga Chikadze for quite a long time. So I think Dariush, especially with the scrambling capability and everything, I think he'll be able to help Giga Chikadze very well there. So I definitely see Allen having a good test on his hands when it comes to this fight. But that being said, Allen has just looked very good against some of the toughest competition, you know, like Evloev. He fought Max Holloway. He went to decisions with both of them, made them very competitive fights, and he's just got a very well-rounded game. I mean, he can fight very well on the back foot, which we know Giga cannot from that Kelvin Kattar fight. And I think that the key for this fight, when it comes to Allen, speaking on that forward pressure and being on the back foot, is Arnold Allen's aggression. That is the key in this fight, without a doubt. I mean, he's got the chin to make sure that he can come forward and he can take some shots, but that hand speed and that power that he has when he's on the front foot and when he gets those combinations going, he is absolutely vicious. Roll it back to Dan Hooker versus Arnold Allen. That was insane. Arnold Allen, if he pops off, he pops off. And also, that being said, on a technical standpoint, as you can see on the screen, he's a southpaw. It's going to make it a lot more difficult for Giga Chikadze to target Arnold Allen's liver if he is in southpaw while Giga Chikadze is in orthodox, because it's just not on the right side. So that is ultimately taking away, it's not completely removing it, but it is hindering Giga Chikadze's best weapon, which he needs to target the body of Arnold Allen to slow this fight down and get his... If Giga Chikadze can dictate the pace in any fight, he's very, very dangerous. But Arnold Allen, if he can't shoot Arnold Allen's body, he's in a lot of trouble, I think. But that being said, with that aggression, Chikadze, he needs to be making sure that he maintains that kickboxing range pretty much at all times, and make sure that he has to pressure Arnold simultaneously, as well as making sure that he's in a safe range, which is just not going to be easy to do against Allen, who can threaten with takedowns as well. I mean, he's got the submission threat there as well. He's 4-0 with submissions, and I think that he's just going to do a very good job of mixing up his game and mixing up his pacing as well. I think he's going to do a very good job. If he needs to level change, he will level change, or if he needs to get aggressive, he'll get aggressive. And I think that's just going to frustrate the absolute shit out of Giga moving through this fight. But I don't see Arnold Allen taking out Giga Chikadze, because Giga has a bloody chin on him. Roll it back to the Kelvin Kattar fight. Holy shit balls. And he absorbed so many strikes. He just did not stop coming forward. And he's 35 years old now, so his chin does have a bit of wear. We'll say that, but I'm definitely not favoring a finish in this fight. I just think it's going to be a very competitive decision win for Arnold Allen for him to get back into the win column. Moving on, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop. This was definitely interesting because this has moved around a fair bit in this card as well, and I don't hate this being on the main card. I think this is going to be a very entertaining fight, and with the power that both of these guys have, holy shit balls. Yeah, I think it's going to be entertaining for as long as it lasts. Now, this in terms of predicting, it is a tricky fight to match up and pick, and I am not mad that this is on the main card, but it's definitely a tricky one because this fight really comes down to whoever is able to maintain the forward pressure, and I think whoever does maintain that pressure is going to be finishing this fight pretty spectacularly, to be honest. And look, even though Christian Leroy Duncan has a lot of momentum on his side and has the reach advantage in this fight and the KO threat as well, I just prefer RoboCop's striking capabilities on the back foot compared to Duncan. Very similar to Giga Chikadze, I don't know how I feel about Christian Leroy Duncan on that back foot, especially in comparison to Gregory Rodriguez. And I feel like that is the key for Gregory Rodriguez in this fight. I mean, he has a lot more experience in terms of quality of opposition in comparison to Christian Leroy Duncan, and he has a better ground game threat as well. But if he lets Duncan maintain a kickboxing range, and even worse, allows him to pressure, then I can definitely see RoboCop getting slept. Especially he's been a little bit chinny. I will say that. He's been a little bit. But I am going to say I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening. I believe that RoboCop will be able to utilize the pressure, close the distance to take away those long-range weapons from Leroy Duncan. They're the biggest issues there, 100%. And I think Gregory Rodriguez is going to be able to do a good job of taking this into a dirty boxing kind of phone box kind of range and push it against the cage. And I think that he is going to be able to knock Leroy Duncan out in the first round. It's optimistic, but I think Gregory Rodriguez, if he can impose his will, push forward, make it a dirty boxing fight, which he's a very big physical presence. He's taller, he's just naturally a bit bigger. And honestly, I feel like if he can get that pressure forward and take Christian Leroy Duncan on and put him on the back foot, I think, and I'm going to say it, I think RoboCop is going to sleep Leroy Duncan and take that momentum away. Ultimately, I mean, it could go either way, but I'll obviously be surprised if there isn't going to be a finish here. But with that experience and that well-rounded threat, especially if Rodriguez can get some feints going with some level changes and then come over the top, I can see Gregory Rodriguez getting this one done. I think he just has more of the tools to get this one done. That being said, Leroy Duncan, if he imposes his will and gets Gregory Rodriguez on the back foot, stays in kickboxing range, Rodriguez could get slept without a doubt, but ultimately I'm more keen on going on Gregory Rodriguez to get this done by a dirty finish. And moving on to our feature prelim fight, King Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett. This feature fight has a lot of questions for us. I mean, is Paddy going to be able to deal with Bobby Green's hand speed? And no, I'm not fucking calling him King. I'm just going to call him Bobby. Such a stupid name. And then for Bobby, I know Paddy Pimblett's just going to have an absolute field day on the press conference with that shit. Honestly, it's going to be funny. But anyway, moving back into the fight. When it comes to Bobby as well, is Bobby going to actually be able to deal with the second degree black belt that is Paddy Pimblett? So there are questions. I mean, it's a big clash of styles, and they've both been chirping to each other about this clash of styles. And even though Paddy is fighting at home and he trains literally an hour away from where the arena is, I'm saying it now, I think Bobby Green is going to get this one done by a decision. I think he's going to get the upset here, even though he is technically the favorite, but I know that is going to switch when it comes to the fight day, without a doubt. It is going to switch in Paddy Pimblett's favor. Bet my life on it. But when we look at the decision, it could be sketchy because obviously we got the Jared Gordon treatment where the pick could get completely scuffed, and I wouldn't be surprised if the judges slide it Paddy's way because it's Paddy Pimblett. You know, like, it's a pain in the ass, and I feel sorry for Jared Gordon. But yeah, who knows? Honestly, we obviously look at these predictions on paper and stylistically, and we really make the matchup fair in terms of just, you know, what they've done in their careers and you know, looking at them statistically and stylistically. And honestly, I know that Bobby Green is chinny and Paddy does have some power there, but Bobby is just a level above with the overall striking. I mean, he hits at a very consistent clip as well. He has a strike output of 6.5 strikes landed per minute. And with him having almost 50 fights to his name, those statistics are definitely backed up and definitely fortified. So we know that he consistently has a very good output in his fights, blatantly obvious. And when we look at the ground game as well, Bobby is 9-2 with submissions, and he was last finished on the ground 15 years ago. Now, don't get me wrong, I would give Paddy the advantage in the submission threat here. I mean, Paddy is definitely advanced on the ground, but I do believe that Bobby has the defense to hold up if it gets there. And if I'm honest, I'm more comfortable with Bobby being on the ground than Paddy being on the feet, because Bobby just, I mean, if Bobby does come into exchange, I can understand that Paddy could knock him out. With Bobby's chin being a bit suspect now after that Jalen Turner KO, which I agree with Paddy Pimblett on that. I mean, he was right in saying that. I do agree with him. I mean, after a knockout like that against Jalen Turner, and then beforehand getting knocked out by Drew Dober, and he's not getting any younger, his chin is compromised without a doubt. He almost got slept by Tony Ferguson in the first round of their fight as well. I don't think Paddy just poses the same threat as them. I mean, more than Tony Ferguson at this point, but not Jalen Turner and not Drew Dober. Definitely not Jalen Turner. So overall, I will say when it comes to Bobby Green, realistically, I mean, just the overall experience that he does have and the striking level that he has fought against. I mean, he's fought against strikers that are so much better than Paddy Pimblett in his career. I honestly just see that striking really coming into fruition, especially coming through the later rounds. I really feel like with Paddy Pimblett maybe having a bit of a suspect gas tank towards the end of it, depending on how much consistent damage Bobby Green can actually land on him in that fight, as well as Paddy Pimblett's striking defense. It's very piss poor. It's not good. Paddy Pimblett has his chin straight up in the air, and he relies on his chin so much in his fights that hopefully he has tailored and changed up, because that will make him so much better. It will just give him so much more promise moving into those rankings. But I am going to say it's a hot take. I don't think it's the time for Paddy Pimblett to get into those rankings, and I'm going to be taking Bobby Green by the decision in this one. And moving on to our co-main event, Tommy Aspinall versus Curtis Blaydes number 2. This is definitely going to be an interesting fight, and I'm going to go with a hot take straight off the bat. I think Curtis Blaydes will be the other guy other than Arlovski to get Aspinall into the second round in the UFC. But then I think he's going to get chinned. No, I don't think he's going to win. Hopefully I got someone there. I don't think that he is going to win. I think Tom Aspinall, he's just a different breed. He's just a different breed at this point, especially in that heavyweight division. I mean, aside from the offensive wrestling threat in this matchup, Aspinall has the clear advantage pretty much absolutely everywhere. I mean, I do think that Curtis Blaydes does have like the clinch capability and possibly getting something off in there and making it dirty, and the takedown threat there as well, which I think with that takedown threat and, you know, making it a bit dirty in the clinch and trying to suffocate Tom Aspinall and really trying to close that distance, which we haven't seen really anyone do against Tom Aspinall. I think that is where Curtis Blaydes can edge it into the second round, especially if he does feint. I mean, his best chance, if he feints low for a takedown and then goes upstairs and clips Aspinall on the chin, there's definitely a possibility that he could take Tom Aspinall out. But I think that's just too far of a stretch to pick him, honestly. I do think that Aspinall, towards the end of the first round, I think he will damage him towards the end of the first round. He will wobble him, then the bell will go, and then I think once it gets into the second round, I think that he is just going to get a very clean finish. Give me the second round KO in this fight. I think he'll land a very clean hook very early into the second round, and then just separate him from consciousness with the ground and pound. And moving up to our main event, Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad 2. I'm going to call it now. As much as people hate Belal, I think this is going to be more entertaining than the Colby Covington fight. And that's because I think Belal is just going to be more game than Colby Covington was in that striking department. I mean, after getting that finish with Sean Brady, who was undefeated, and the 5-round confidence after beating Burns as well, which he kept on the feet pretty much most of that fight, I think that it will be made more entertaining. I do think that it'll be more entertaining as long as it lasts. And I say that because I think Leon Edwards is actually going to finish him. Leon is one of the clear examples of leveling up in MMA. And that is just concrete with that third fight against Kamaru Usman. Yes, he was doing, he was doing a bit of cheating, bit of fence grabbing here and there. And the point deduction, he got the point deduction, which was definitely fair. He should have got it. But with that, he really started taking control of that fight, especially in comparison to the second fight and the first fight that they had, where Usman was just ragdolling him for the whole entire fight in their second fight, except for the first round. And I'm going to say it, I really, honestly, I don't see Leon losing to anyone in welterweight at this point in time, let alone Belal. His kickboxing, I think his kickboxing is just way too clean. He's got very good takedown defense, especially with the wrist control and his peeling. He's very good at controlling the wrist, peeling the hands off. That's honestly one of my favorite parts of his whole entire game. I mean, he showcased that so well in the third Usman fight. I highly recommend you watch that if you want to see it. Aside from the fence grabs and everything like that, he actually did a very, very good job of nullifying Kamaru Usman's wrestling. And if he is nullifying Kamaru Usman's wrestling like that in that fight, as well as Colby Covington's, I don't see Belal offering anything that those two haven't already offered. And from that first fight that they did have, understandably, Belal did come in on short notice, and he has honestly improved so much since that fight. But Leon has improved since that fight, different levels of improvement. And honestly, the world will go absolutely nuts if Belal wins, and I'm kind of here for it, to be honest. I wouldn't mind seeing that, just absolute carnage, but this is Leon's time. I think this is Leon's time. I think he's going to get that TKO finish with a very clean hook and then I think he's just going to take it to the ground. Clean hook, knock him down, ground and pound, and I think he's going to finish this in the third round to finish off a very, very good card. Now, moving on to the Fight Card Awards, kicking it off with Fight of the Night. I think with something to prove and the overall durability and technical skill set from Arnold, Allen, and Giga Chikadze, I think that they are going to give us the most entertaining fight with a shit ton of output and possibly, a bit of mix up with the ground game there. But I think just being on the feet with that mix up of the aggressiveness from Arnold and that technical capability from Giga Chikadze, I am pretty confident that this is going to be the fight of the night just by having, honestly, the most action within it. And moving on to the performance of the night, as I said in his fight prediction, Leon is just leveling up performance after performance after performance. So I honestly just seeing this fight against Belal being no different. I think Belal will make him work for it. Don't get me wrong. I think he could steal some rounds in there, in all honesty. But Leon, I think he is on that different level, and I think he's going to get those reads with his kickboxing and put on an absolute clinic and get that finish. And moving on to fighter to watch, I think that honestly, this is a fantastic opportunity for Sam Patterson to get noticed on this card fighting a guy like Crosbie. He's got the physical advantages in this fight. He's got the tools, and I think he can get this done in honestly spectacular fashion. Definitely keep a lookout for this guy moving forward after this UFC event. I think that he definitely has, especially the physical attributes. He's got the physical attributes to make a statement. Once he tidies up the wrestling and his striking defense, he will be a problem in that welterweight division. And moving on to finish of the night, in terms of just straight brutality and a guaranteed finish, you just got to give it to Tom Aspinall. I mean, there's really no one else here. I think Aspinall has just got that ability to not only get the brutal KO finish, but he's got the ability to be a long-time heavyweight champion and a legend of the sport if he keeps on this run. And taking out a dangerous veteran like Curtis Blaydes is just further cementing that statement that he can be a long-time great champion in that heavyweight division. And this finish against Curtis Blaydes will get him that undisputed title. I have absolutely no doubt about it. And speaking of Tom Aspinall becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion, check out my video on why the heavyweight division is an absolute mess at the moment and what they can do to fix it. It's just up here on the screen if you haven't seen it already. And please like, comment, subscribe if you've enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next one.